Hello, this is Bettina Bizziello, and I'm here to show you how to get a document ready for uploading to any digital retailer you use for ebooks. Now, while most websites have their own requirements, some things are pretty steady, they remain the same, they're constant throughout the ebook world, so to speak. Um, Again, we're doing this in Word, and I'm using the template that I created in my previous video on how to make a template in Word for fiction novel writing. There are a couple things that I left out in that previous video that I kind of want to address here. One of the things is if you're getting ready to start drafting an ebook, there are little quick tools that you can use, and most of them are up here in the ribbon. So when you have a template, as you can see, this is the one that I created, you can go into every single one of these options over here, and you can update and modify each of them to say, or to present like a different font, a different size, a different, space. All these are customizable. So I did go, this is my third attempt at this video. I attempted it about just after I made the first video. And there were a lot of things that I discovered going through the process that I was like, okay, I could either just tell people, well, let's not do that, or edit it out, or just, start over from scratch. I decided to start over from scratch. The first thing I would like to note, and these are things that I've discovered, is that if you use the traditional way of making a table of contents, and that's using the heading one, going over each chapter and assigning it a chapter heading, when you tell it to insert a table of contents, it does not turn it into a hyperlinked table of contents, even though one of the options in table of contents is to use hyperlinks. And this is web preview. So I've gone through a couple of different options on this, looking around online. There is probably a way to tweak it. Again, to me, it just creates a whole bunch of unnecessary information in the back end. And the way that I've been doing it is a much simpler way. Now, with that said, when you go through the process of making a ebook ready for paperback, you do have to use this method. There's a couple things that you tweak in here to change that, and it is a little bit of extra work when that time comes. But I've tried this multiple times to do this, strictly by Word, strictly how Word has designed this program to work. And I'm just not making it work. And I'd rather show you guys the way that I do things. The other thing that I noticed, and this is what happened the second time around, was that when I had a chapter heading, and I can actually go through this process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple things here. It's going to do a cute little book title, like I Like Pandas. And I actually went through this whole process of do. And it's like, people might think I'm insane. Well, people might think I'm even more insane than what I've presented so far, so I'm just going to keep it simple. Okay. All right, so for example, the way I do this is you can either use the title or, go to heading. When I went through the heading process and decided to change everything to heading one, just for the purposes of using a future table of contents, it created a duplicate entry in, where is it? In the bookmark references. So for example, when you create a bookmark, you're going to make little entries in here. And this is going to be what you're going to refer back to when you make hyperlinks, and I'm going to go through that process in a second. However, when you go into hyperlinks and you insert a hyperlink and you go into a place in this document, when you create the, well, you won't see it right now, but when you create the heading 1, it actually makes a little entry in here along with whatever entries you manually create. What I attempted to do was, since I was still doing the manual hyperlink creation, I said, oh, well, the headings made a reference. I didn't know it did that. So I went through the process of telling it to link back to that. And it was really bad. So I'm just going to go ahead and go over some examples here. So, and I'll show you what I mean. So for example, it's book title. Now, when you're getting a ebook ready, you might just have a draft. You may have already set up chapters. Like you're like, okay, I'm working on the next chapter. So, I'm going to do Control Enter, and that creates a new page. And I said, all right, this is chapter 1. I love everything. Okay, so you start writing by including chapters in your first, second, third draft, whatever. Maybe it came back from the editor and you'd already made chapters, or they made chapters. If you're going in through your document and you want to make chapters, it's really simple. When I'm writing, I have natural pauses or breaks. Sometimes I do mid-chapter breaks. I do a lot of them, actually. So I'll go through what I end up doing. So it's like I have my draft written, and just for this, I'm just going to make some separate entries for chapter 1, chapter 2, and again, I'm holding Control and hitting Enter. That is a quick way to make a page break, something that you will need when you're making an ebook file, or when you're making a paperback file. It's the same. So I'm going to make a couple entries here just so you see how things work. And so my acknowledgement, I have acknowledgements. All right, there we go. So you just know for sure that I've been saying. Okay, scrolling back up. What I like to have, and this is just for the content, so we're going to work on the ebook file. I'm going to go through the process. So everything I said before is just things to keep in mind as we go through this. So I have my document written. I do have a format that I use, and you can go about looking this up online. I don't really want to force my way of doing things onto anyone, but for example, you want to have some sort of copyright. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. You want to have some sort of copyright. And that's either going to be the year, and you might have like a little disclaimer. All right, and then you move on to, the next page, which would be a table of contents, and then you go down, you Control Enter, and then you have chapter 1. Now, when you're writing your book, you might have the title and the author name on just the front page, maybe center, right in the middle of the page, at the very top, whatever, the title at the top, your name at the bottom. There are different ways to have title pages. That's fine, whatever you want to do there. Just you want your book title somewhere in the front of all of this. You might include the copyright on the same page. You might put it on the next page. In ebooks, I like to keep it all condensed to one page. And my reasoning for this is because I want the reader to be able to dive right into my book without all the riffraff in front of it. Having 2 separate pages for the title and then the copyright is perfectly fine. Again, when you look at a traditional book, this is the stuff that you will see. After that, you might see like a prologue, an intro. You might have a thank you or a dedication in the beginning of a book. And again, you might have like 5, 6, 7 pages worth of stuff before people get into your book. That's fine. Again, that's totally cool if you like to do that. I don't do that, but again, if you're going to make a separate page or you just want to make everything nice and clean, just make sure Control Enter, make a next page of all the stuff that you want on that next page, Control Enter, then go to the next one. Formatting, we'll get to that in a second. Again, you can still use these options up here. If you want to pre-customize, like, this is all centered, which I'm going to do, and this is going to be the title. So, you can customize the title to be this, to be font size 20, maybe a couple spaces here, copyright, and just a disclaimer. This is pretty much what my stuff looks like. I have a title, I have a subtitle, I have my author name, I have the copyright, I have some information, I have credits to my cover designer, and then the next page is my table of contents. Again, you can use the heading or the title option for here. I just go ahead and manually set this up. That's just the way I have been doing it. To me, this is the easiest way. It gives me more control over what is happening in the book instead of letting it be automated. Again, some people like pre-formatted automated things that, for example, like I said, one of the things that I've used for screenwriting is Final Draft, and that's very automated, very predetermined, requires minimal setup on your end. That's the way the software is designed. Word is very basic. Word gives you all the things to customize. You can actually download templates to have all these different things. Personally, I like being able to create it because not everyone has the same process I do. So I like to be very hands-on and customize the things that I want to see and happen in my books and when I'm writing. Again, minimal hassle. Minimal hassle. However, during this process, you kind of want to be hassled because it's a way to self-check and make sure that everything looks the same. So, because I've put out books where I forgot to, make chapter 1 centered and large, like I've just gone through it really fast. And I'm like, oh shit, I completely forgot about that. So you want to be very mindful of what you're doing, and you want to go through and, again, if you have multiple chapters, you can always do either Control F or find and type in the word chapter, and there it's going to find all of the entries with chapter, and you can just next. So it's a way to make sure that when you're writing out your chapters, you didn't type out chapter 2 twice, that, everything has the proper reference, it's in the right place, and you can go through really fast and just make sure that they're all like centered or large or however you set it up to be. Control F is your friend. And I don't talk about find and replace. I'm just saying, just looking for something in your document. So this is pretty much what my stuff looks like when I do an ebook. The other thing I do here, actually usually don't have it like that. All right, so table of contents. Under the table of contents, that's where I have my existing chapters. And so for this example, we've only had 3. And we have a section for acknowledgments. Another thing that I like to add, sometimes I have social media links. You could have other things at the end. Everything after the table of contents, if it's a separate section, should always be entered here. That way, if someone is going through your book maybe a second time around, or they're really curious to see what other stuff you've been involved in, they can have a direct link to that. And again, you want to promote your stuff. You want to get, as many people. You want to network so not only do you want to network yourself, you want to network your books. So you want your books to refer to other books in your series, or you want, other things easily accessible, your social media, if you have a Goodreads profile, stuff like, well, actually you have a Goodreads profile, whether you like it or not, it's just the way it is there. Anything listed here, you want to make sure you add it. Now, I don't have social media in this section, but actually I think I will create one, only because I want to make sure that I show everyone how to do hyperlinks. Social media. Okay. So let's go back up. So I did this. I pretty much formatted this. Again, you can use any of the ribbons here. I'm just going to do it manually. We're going to go into chapter 1, and we're going to center it. We're going to make it 20. Now, a note on font size. This is an ebook. It's read on many different digital platforms. Your PC, a tablet, a phone. Those are the 3 typical things that these books are read on. You don't want your font size to be insanely large. You don't want to bust out the 72. You don't want to go crazy on these people because they have to be able to read what's on their screen, especially on a phone. And you can always set up examples for yourself. You can always save and convert these files. Again, I'll do a video on how to convert it using Calibre. But you can always save, convert the file, download it to your phone and see how it looks. You can always do this stuff. And Amazon includes previews for their Kindle on how it looks in the Kindle. So you can always see if there's something to be funky. Maybe you actually have to go in and add a little extra space. Or maybe, because I've seen things where the chapter heading, well, not the chapter heading, but I have mid-chapter breaks. And not only that, I have different points of view. So my books are multiple person, first person points of view. So for example, I'll have a chapter heading and then I'll have a character name. Go with Bob because everybody loves Bob. I usually keep this just a little smaller than the title and I usually have a space in between. So Bob loves everything. So this is how it is. And sometimes I'll go even further and just say, Bob loves everything and that was that. And then, we have another section where Bob desires a pie. Because who doesn't like pie? All right, there are little things that might happen that you might have subsections, or maybe this, for example, when I have multiple first-person points of view switch within a chapter, because that's fine. As long as you indicate and you have a large font saying, hey, this is switching a point of view so your readers don't get confused, which something I've had that feedback in the future, please make this larger. Sometimes it'll switch and that their name was so small that it just didn't register in my brain that, things switched because when people are reading, things become invisible to them. Dialogue tags, for example, he said, she said, those are kind of your brain's way of registering someone else is talking, but your mind just kind of glazes over them as you're going through. And it's just a way where if someone does get confused and wait, who is talking? They'll see that he said, she said in the different lines. They'll be like, oh, okay, just a really quick refresher. If you're successful in your writing, they won't have to reread your stuff. But for this, you want to make sure that everything is clearly indicated. Again, this is my style of writing. This may not be yours. You might have, third person and you don't have you just have chapter here and there's no subsection for your character's point of view, or, you may even have a title for your chapter. That's fine. And if you do have a title for your chapter, you could either do chapter 1 title, which I kind of recommend and I kind of don't. I'll tell you why in a second. Or you might have it instead of where Bob is right here. You type in Bob the Happening. So that's fine too. This is all about what universe you are creating for your reader. Nothing is wrong. Just as long as you are consistent and it's identifiable and you have proper spacing. Moving on to spacing. This is, again, an ebook. Different devices show different things. I like the way it looks when I have 3 spaces between, the chapter, just if you ignore this for a second, between the chapter and the first line, and then if I have a mid-chapter break or a first-person point of view swap, I have 3 spaces, the name or some asterisks, or you can do tildes. That's perfectly fine. Or these, whatever you want, that's perfectly fine to put there as long as it's consistent, looks pretty, you see it throughout the book, and you can get, oops, I didn't mean to do that. You can go crazy fancy, just little things like that. Whatever can indicate that there's a space or whatever within a chapter. You never want to go more than 3 spaces. And part of that is, for example, this is chapter 1 and a person's reading this on an iPhone or an Android and they're scrolling through and they see chapter 1, they see the first line, and because there's 5 spaces between chapter 1 and the first line, there's maybe 2 sentences on their screen before they have to swipe to the next page. That takes the reader out of your story. It can get really aggravating. You don't want them to just have massive chunks of space. You can go as little as 2. I mean, you could still do 1. To me, 1 seems too cramped. So I would say 2 spaces, 3 spaces maximum. I like 3. I haven't had any complaints yet. I use 3. I'm very consistent with 3. I've even had people give me feedback on they read it on their iPhones or whatever, and they've not said any complaints about the spacing and the alignment, and that's what I want to hear. So as long as everything here is consistent, you should be good. The other thing you want to make note of is if you do have a midsection break, you want to center it. So now to chapter 2. Again, you can either go up here and switch the font size, or you can right click on it, or actually it comes up for a second. You change the size here. You do have to click this up here. And there are a couple things that I am a little bit inconsistent of. Sometimes with my acknowledgments, I just kind of leave 1 space because it's not really anything, and I want to try to shrink as much size as possible. So we have that centered, we have that 20, we're good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you 2 different types of hyperlinks that you can do in a document. The first one is basically the bulk of what we're doing here today. We want to make this a linked table of contents. So when it goes to a person's device, they just, say they've read 3 chapters and they want to go to the next one. They just have to click it and they're good to go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to each section. And again, the best way to do this, I like to do a find. You could do a split if you like. I just do it this way because I don't know, I'm insane. So this one, these represent, let me just do this again. This is the first 3 right here, as you can see. And if you have this all typed out and ready to go, you will see a different section, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you want to go to the second part and you're good to go. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to highlight all of this, and you're going to insert, and you're going to go to bookmark. This is my manual way of doing this. I type in CH1 to represent chapter 1, and I add it. You're going to click the next button and highlight chapter 2, and you go into bookmark, chapter 2, add. Some things to note when you're going through this process and you go into the bookmark, you can't do chapter space 3. As you can see, it grays it out. It has to be all one word. Whatever you're typing has to have no spaces in there. And next thing we're going to do is go into acknowledgments. If it's a long word or if it's a phrase like social media, you can either abbreviate it, just so this is only for your knowledge. You could type out the entire word if you'd like. Just for the example, for social media, I'll just do SM. All right. Now we have our bookmark references. So if I go into here, I'm just going to show you this example, and this is what I did before, and it didn't come out really nice. So I'm going to change this disgusting font that we all hate. I'm going to customize this with the settings I use for my normal chapter headings. You don't need to change anything in format if you do go this route, not like we did before. Unless there's something specific you need to include. So for example, if I go into chapter 1, and over here I click on heading 1, as you can see, nothing's changed. If I insert and go to heading 1 again, this is stuff that you can do, or while you're writing, you can make sure heading 1 is selected while you write. So I'm going to do this just to show you the entries that it creates in the bookmark section. And I'm going to show you why I don't use it, as I attempted the last time. So now we're going to go into the point of making hyperlinks. So there's two ways you could do this in here. You can go to insert, you can go to hyperlink, and it's going to ask, what do you want to link it to? And you could go into a place in this document, well, that's where you're supposed to go. As you can see, these are the headings that I created using the heading at the top, the heading ribbon. These are the ones that I manually created. So for this example, I'm going to go into chapter 1, make sure it matches. It also says it up here just in case, you know, it blocks your screen or whatever. And click OK. Nice little hyperlink. And then if I go to chapter 2, and this is what I did last time, and so I thought, oh, this is fine, you know. All I can do is hit hyperlink, and then it's like, oh, it created an entry for my, you know, heading 1. And then I found out what happened and why I don't want to use it. So the other way you could do this is if you right-click, you can go to hyperlink, same thing comes up. But this time we're going to click on the headings option and go to chapter 2. For the rest of these, right-click, hyperlink. I'm going to use my entries just so there's not much I have to fix later. And then social media. Okay. All right. So click on control, click, takes me right to chapter 1, right where I set it up. It's beautiful. She didn't mean to go that large. Okay. Be careful when you hold control and scroll. All right, I'm going to do control and then click on chapter 2. This is still chapter 1, except the cursor is down to the page break and not here. This is what I'm talking about. I went through this document before when I was attempting this, and I saw all these different fucky things, and I was just like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. Because up until this video, I'd done it the tradition, you know, my way of, you know, creating a bookmark and then linking to it. And I thought, oh, well, maybe Word has a way of doing this, so you don't have to do crazy manual things like I have. And when I attempted to use it, it did not work out for me. You might be able to get it to work the way I set up my ebook formats, which I've, to date, never had a problem with. I've been complimented multiple times in the way I do things for my ebooks. I don't want to veer from that. There may be a simpler way. You might find a different way of doing things. But for this example, I'm going to stick with my traditional way. And the prime example is I just tried to do it Word's way of, you know, doing a heading, and it completely backfired. As you can see, if I go to the next chapter, it goes right to where it needs to go. So you can, once you've created your table of contents, you can check everything. I don't, and it creates extra work for me, and I'll show you why in a second. You can go through, make sure all of these are linked to what they need to be linked to. As you can see, social media, it says SM, so you know that's the entry that you created. So unless you made a mistake, and again, you can go through this process, go into the find, go look at chapter, and make sure there's no weird double, you know, entries that, you know, this is the table of contents, these are the actual chapter headings, to make sure you didn't make any screwy typos. You can go through that, you can mouse over everything to make sure that, you know, the proper entry was created, you know, the CH1, CH2, that sort of thing, or you can click on the link. Be mindful that when you click on the link, this is what happens. Hidden bookmarks. All of these. These little entries are what happens when you click on links, even if it's an external link in your document. Before you upload your files, you have to go through and delete all of this, because this can cause problems on many of the digital, you know, retailer platforms. When you're uploading the book, it can come up with all sorts of crazy errors, and you want to make sure that it's all cleared out. So this is one of the reasons why I don't click my own links. Again, I'm confident enough when I do this that I don't make any errors. There may be an error or two in there, I don't know. I just don't like creating extra work for myself. But if you're one of those avid checkers and you have to click on the links to make sure they properly work, make sure that you go back into your bookmarks, check hidden bookmarks, and you delete every entry that isn't something that you yourself manually put in there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make links that go outside of your document, and this is for things like social media. All right, so say you're like, hey, check out my Twitter or follow me on Twitter. You can highlight Twitter, or you can include samples like pictorial pictures and images of Twitter. I have a little file related to my social media where I have little icons for Twitter, Facebook, Goodreads. You can find these all online. Sometimes you could find them directly in, if you go to the Goodreads site, they may have little icons that you could use. I know I've seen some there that you could download. And you can insert the picture. So you can just go into insert and pictures, and it'll pop up with a bunch of pictures. So you can go to your file and insert the little icon, place it wherever you want it, center it. I usually center the social media. Or you could just create simple hyperlinks. And if you go into here and you right click, you go to hyperlink, and you go to existing web page or file and just type in I can type Twitter, and then your Twitter handle, whatever you need to do. So I just type out the basic hyperlink just to show you an example. And if I go to control, this will open up Twitter. Again, even if you go to an external hyperlink, if you go to bookmark, as you can see, it registered that. Gotta remove it. Things to be mindful of. All right, so you can just tell people to check out your other books. If you have an Amazon page or you have a Smashwords page, you can link all of that in here and tell people to go to this, that, the other link. It's all going to be contained in one area, and it gives people a way to contact you. Or if you have like a mailing list, you could always have the little mail to set up in here, or you could take them to the web page that might have the little sign up submission form for your mailing list. Things like that. You can enter all of that in here. When you go through the process of, let's see, just make sure this looks good. Okay. Again, you don't necessarily have to create the headings in this file like I had, but when you go through the process of converting this file into a file that's ready for paperback, you will need to do that. That's going to be in a different video. For this is pretty much done. This is good to go. We have our links, everything's spaced nicely. You know, you could publish this to Amazon right now, make $100. Just kidding. I wouldn't do that. All right, so make sure that when you're working with your template, that you're working with a copy of your template. You never want to overwrite your template, or you might have to recreate it again and go through the whole process again. Now, granted, I'm totally cool with people watching my video once more. That's fine. But I would rather you just have something basic saved, multiple, backed up copies of. So if you ever have to go through the process of creating a template again or whatever, you have something, backed up and ready to go. All right, so this setup is ebook ready, as far as I could tell. Now what you're going to do next is you're going to upload it to whatever site you want it to. Make sure that you save it. Now, just a little bit of a note. If you have a book already, and I did highlight this in my first video, and you need to get rid of some, you need to either have it reformatted or get rid of some additional information. Say you created it in a different application. You want to copy the contents of that file into a blank text document, and then you want to copy it from the text document and paste it into a copy of your template. And then you would just make these, changes that you need to if you have to make a different spacing or that sort of thing. That's a quick way of getting rid of any unnecessary information, spaces, tabs, like when I told you about the nasty little tab option, the little arrows, or if you do shift enter instead of regular enter and it creates another little nasty little arrow. If you've done this in a previous Word file or you've done it in a different application and you want to start fresh without having to retype your entire book over again, you're going to copy it, paste it in a blank text. Like if you go to your desktop, if you're on a Windows computer, right click, new text document, and then you paste it in there, you copy it from there and paste it into your, again, a copy of your template. And then you could start tweaking and working with it and doing all the things you need to change it. So it's, again, minimal hassle for you if you're just, you've written your book and you're just like, how do I format this? What the hell do I do? I just need blocks and blocks of text and no indentations, no spaces, nothing telling me where I went wrong. So these are little things that, you could do to not have to start from scratch or, look at the file, be typing on the other screen, that sort of thing. But yeah, this is ready to go. That's all you need to do on this end. Again, you might have obviously a bigger table of contents. You might have some more information, before the book starts. That's okay too, as long as you're consistent. And that's about it. If you have any questions, you can email me at bettina.basiello@gmail.com. You can leave a comment on my website, bettinabasiello.com. All right, if there's anything that you feel that I'm missing or you found a way to better streamline something, or it's like a little tip or trick that you know that you want to send my way, by all means. The next video I'm going to probably do is converting a file manually using Calibre, and I'm probably going to end up doing another video on converting an ebook file, an existing ebook file, which means it's already been formatted, ready to go for an ebook, converting that file, especially if you used my method, into a file ready for paperback, for like Amazon Paperback or CreateSpace, that sort of thing. All right, with that, happy writing, happy reading, and have fun.